Sometimes the hardest thing you can do is accept that something you desperately wanted is no longer meant to stay in your life. You prayed for it, you worked for it, you imagined your future with it, and then suddenly the door closes. A relationship ends, an opportunity disappears, a plan falls apart. Something you thought was your destination suddenly becomes a dead end, and your first instinct may be to fight it. You may think, I just need to try harder, I need to convince them, I need to find another way. But sometimes the more you force a door, the more exhausted you become. There are moments when you have to stop pushing and start listening. Not every closed door is a punishment. Sometimes it is protection. Sometimes God removes something because he can see what you cannot see yet. You may only see what you lost, while God may be preparing you for what you have not discovered. Think about how often we become attached to a specific outcome. We tell ourselves, this has to work, this person has to stay, this opportunity has to happen. But faith requires us to leave room for a different answer. Maybe the answer is not yes, maybe it is not now, maybe it is not this. And sometimes that answer hurts before it makes sense. But don't confuse persistence with forcing. Persistence means continuing to work towards something that is healthy and aligned with your values. Forcing means repeatedly trying to hold on to something that is consistently showing you that it no longer belongs in your life. There is strength in knowing when to release. If someone continually disrespects you, you don't have to keep proving your worth. If an environment constantly destroys your peace, you don't have to remain there simply because you are afraid of starting again. If a plan keeps collapsing despite your honest effort, perhaps it is time to step back, reflect, and ask whether another path is opening. And when a door closes, don't immediately run after it. Pause, pray, reflect. Give yourself time to understand what this season may be teaching you. You may not understand the reason today, but one day you may look back and realize that the thing you begged God to keep was the very thing he was trying to remove. Trust that what leaves your life can create space for what is meant to enter it. Sometimes the closed door is not the end, it is God's redirection. There comes a moment in life when something inside you begins to change. You may not be able to explain it. Nothing dramatic may have happened, but you suddenly realize that the person you have been becoming is not the person you want to remain. The habits that once felt normal begin to feel empty. The conversations that once entertained you no longer interest you. The constant need for approval begins to exhaust you. And somewhere deep inside, you hear a quiet voice telling you, it is time to become better. Don't ignore that feeling. Sometimes we think change has to come from a crisis. We wait until something breaks before we decide to rebuild. But transformation can begin quietly. It can begin with a desire to become more disciplined, more patient, more honest, more peaceful, and more intentional with your life. Maybe you are tired of wasting your mornings scrolling through things that add nothing to your future. Maybe you are tired of making promises to yourself and breaking them. Maybe you are tired of allowing fear to make your decisions. Maybe you have reached a point where you no longer want to live simply to impress people. That discomfort can be meaningful. When you begin to outgrow your old habits, your old environment may suddenly feel uncomfortable. You may start choosing silence instead of unnecessary arguments. You may start saying no without feeling guilty. You may start protecting your time. You may become more selective about who gets access to your energy. And people may ask, what happened to you? What happened is that you started listening to yourself. But becoming a better person doesn't mean becoming perfect. It means becoming more aware. It means recognizing where you need to grow and having the courage to work on it. You may still make mistakes. You may still lose your patience. You may still have difficult days. Growth doesn't mean you never fall back into old patterns. It means you don't stay there. Give yourself permission to evolve. You don't owe anyone the same version of yourself forever. The person you were yesterday did the best they could with the understanding they had at that time. But today you know more. Today you see more clearly. So use that awareness to make better choices. If something inside you is calling you toward discipline, listen. If you feel drawn toward peace, follow it. If you feel the need to change your habits, your priorities, and your direction, don't keep postponing it. Sometimes the first sign that your life is changing is that your heart no longer feels comfortable living the way it used to. Listen to that pull. It may be leading you toward the person you were meant to become. Sometimes, one of the clearest signs that your life is changing is that certain people and environments no longer feel right for you. And I know that can be painful. We naturally want the people we love to stay with us. We want familiar places to remain comfortable. We want every relationship to last forever. But growth has a way of changing what we can tolerate, what we value, and what we are willing to accept. There may come a time when you realize that a friendship you once depended on is no longer healthy. Maybe every conversation has become negative. Maybe you constantly feel judged, drained, or disrespected. Maybe the people around you encourage habits that you are desperately trying to leave behind. And suddenly you find yourself feeling guilty because you don't want to walk away. But understand this, letting go does not always mean you hate someone. Sometimes it simply means you have accepted that you are growing in a different direction. You cannot become a new version of yourself while constantly surrounding yourself with everything that keeps pulling you back into your old one. If you are trying to build discipline, but your environment celebrates laziness, you will struggle. If you are trying to protect your peace, but every conversation around you is filled with drama, you will feel exhausted. If you are trying to develop confidence, but people constantly make you question your worth, you have to reconsider how much access they have to your life. And sometimes God creates distance without you having to force it. People may stop calling, invitations may disappear, certain conversations may naturally become less frequent. Places you once enjoyed may no longer feel meaningful. At first, you may wonder why everything seems to be changing at once, but sometimes the distance is creating space for healthier relationships, space for personal growth, space for reflection, space for you to hear your own thoughts again. Don't chase every person who walks away. Don't beg for a place where you are no longer respected. Don't keep shrinking yourself just to remain accepted in an environment that no longer supports who you are becoming. At the same time, remember that not every disagreement means you should leave someone behind. Growth also requires forgiveness, patience, communication, and understanding. The goal is not to isolate yourself. The goal is to surround yourself with people who respect your values, support your growth, and want to see you become better. Your circle matters. Your environment matters. Your peace matters. Sometimes losing access to certain people is not a sign that you are losing your way. It may be a sign that you are finally making room for the right path. Let what is leaving leave with grace and trust what God is making room for. There are seasons in life when it feels like the same kind of challenge keeps appearing again and again. You think you have moved past it, and then another situation comes along that tests your patience, your confidence, your discipline, or your ability to trust. In those moments, you may wonder, why does this keep happening to me? But what if the better question is, what is this trying to teach me? Because sometimes the difficult season is not there to destroy you, it is there to develop you. Life has a way of exposing the areas where we still need to grow. If you struggle with patience, you may encounter situations that force you to slow down. If you constantly seek approval, you may find yourself in moments where you have to choose between being accepted and staying true to yourself. If you avoid difficult decisions, life may eventually place you in a position where you cannot keep running away. These lessons are uncomfortable because growth is uncomfortable. We often pray for strength, but strength is built through moments that require us to be strong. We ask for wisdom, but wisdom comes from experience, reflection, and sometimes painful mistakes. We ask for confidence, but confidence develops when we face uncertainty and discover that we can handle more than we thought. So when life challenges you, don't immediately assume that everything is going wrong. Pause and look deeper. Maybe the situation is teaching you boundaries. Maybe it is teaching you patience. Maybe it is teaching you to stop depending on people who cannot support you. Maybe it is teaching you to trust yourself. Maybe it is teaching you that your worth does not disappear simply because someone failed to recognize it. And remember, learning a lesson does not mean you will never struggle again. Growth means that when the challenge returns, you respond differently. You don't react as quickly. You don't make the same decision. You recognize the warning signs sooner. You protect your peace. You choose wisdom over impulse. That is progress. Sometimes God does not remove the challenge immediately because there is something inside you that needs to become stronger first. The situation may be temporary, but the strength you develop through it can stay with you for the rest of your life. So don't waste difficult seasons by only asking when they will end. Ask what they are building within you. One day, you may look back at the very experiences that broke your comfort and realize they were building your character, your courage, and your faith. The lesson may be difficult, but the person you become because of it can be extraordinary. Let every challenge teach you, strengthen you, and prepare you for where you are going. Expand key point 1 into a 400-word segment that flows naturally within the speech and maintains alignment with the overall key points. Avoid any headings and ensure the tone is seamless and conversational. Conclude with only the necessary closing line for impact. And don't mention Priyanka Chopra name and write it like Priyanka Chopra is giving a speech in key points. Your piece becomes more valuable than people's approval. Sometimes the hardest part of faith is continuing to move forward when you cannot see where the road is taking you. You have prayed, you have worked, you have tried to do the right thing, and yet you still don't have the answers you want. You don't know when things will change. You don't know how the situation will turn out. You don't even know why you are walking through this particular season. And that uncertainty can be frightening. But faith is not always about knowing the entire plan. Sometimes faith is simply trusting that you don't have to know everything today. We often want a detailed map. We want to know what is coming, when it will happen, and how everything will work out. But life rarely gives us that kind of certainty. Sometimes you only get enough light to take the next step. So take that step. Maybe right now you are working towards something and nobody seems to notice. Maybe you are rebuilding after a disappointment. Maybe you are learning to become a different person while your circumstances still look the same. Don't assume that nothing is happening simply because you cannot see the results yet. Growth often happens quietly before it becomes visible. A seed doesn't become a tree overnight. First, it grows beneath the surface. You don't see the roots developing, but that doesn't mean there is no progress. Your life can be like that too. You may be developing patience, discipline, wisdom, courage, and faith in ways that are invisible today but will become essential tomorrow. And sometimes the delay is part of the preparation. You may be asking for an opportunity that you are not ready to handle yet. You may be asking for a relationship while you are still learning how to love yourself. You may be asking for success while you are still developing the discipline required to sustain it. So don't despise the waiting period. Use it. Learn during it, grow during it, prepare during it. Trusting the process does not mean sitting still and expecting everything to happen for you. It means doing your part while accepting that you cannot control the timing of everything. Pray, work, learn, make wise decisions, and keep moving forward. There will be days when your faith feels strong and days when you question everything. That's human. You don't need to have perfect faith every moment. You simply need enough courage to keep taking the next right step. One day you may look back and realize that the delays, endings, disappointments, and unexpected turns were not random. They were shaping you for a destination you couldn't see at the beginning. You don't need to see the whole path to take the next step with faith.